Peter, you will begin with high-speed rail. Number 1, do you favor the high-speed rail project? Number 2, how will high-speed rail project affect Menlo Park?
Thank you. I've not been a big fan of high-speed rail. I don't think it's economically viable. I think it's going to cost, it's already double the cost of what had been told to voters. So it's now up to $90+ billion. However, having said that, with Menlo Park, I am more comfortable now that we have the blended solution, which is, I was very much opposed when high-speed rail originally talked about a 4-track elevated track that would have cut our city into 2. And I was glad that our assemblyman and congressional representative and worked with Caltrain to put together what's called the blended solution, which is where they will use the high-speed rail trains will use the existing street level tracks. And what we get also is we'll get electrification for Caltrain, which means we will get more train service because of that. So I'm willing to, and I think that's a reasonable compromise for allowing some high-speed rail trains to do that. But I would definitely, I've definitely been all the time opposed to elevated tracks or anything that divides our city.
Thank you, Peter. Kelly?
In 2008, I voted to sue the High-Speed Rail Authority as a last-ditch effort to protect Menlo Park, and it worked. We won that lawsuit ultimately, and very much a part of that was this compromise of the blended system. I spent a lot of time, well, I will say my campaign is endorsed by Kevin Allard, who has been a real leader in this community from the Felton Gables neighborhood in engaging with Sacramento to stop the most egregious parts of high-speed rail. And as Peter said, it was originally envisioned as a 4-track elevated monstrosity, destroying Menlo Park. I spent a lot of time going to Sacramento and talking to legislators and going to the high-speed rail meetings and protesting their approach. And ultimately, it worked, but there's more to do. One benefit in the direction now that I see benefiting Menlo Park residents and residents up and down the peninsula is the plans and beginning implementation of positive train control, which allows more trains to serve the peninsula.
Thank you, Kelly. Kristen?
Yes, I think that I would venture to guess that we're pretty much in agreement that the 4-track separation, especially in Menlo Park, because that corridor cuts right through the middle of our city. Some other communities don't have it be quite so divisive, was not an optimal solution. Certainly the blended one is better. Electrification, I think, is really important moving forward, especially with the ability to bring in more trains. We know that Caltrain is at capacity, over capacity, especially for people bringing on bikes. So I think we do need to increase the capacity of trains, especially when we sort of are touting the benefits of transit-oriented development. We need to make sure that there's capacity on the trains to accommodate that. That said, I think there's still work to be done on regional issues and connectivity around the Bay, just to deal with the immediate local commuter traffic. So I would like to see us, continuing to work on those solutions as well.
Thank you. Drew?
Thank you. I favor high-speed rail as an idea. I certainly think it's good that California is at the forefront of thinking of innovative transportation solutions. Our air system, to a large degree, is taxed, And high-speed rail, like I said, as an idea, it is great. I mean, some bullet train flying through the Central Valley farms is great. I am disappointed that this didn't stop in San Jose. I think that the peninsula is a special situation. These are communities, and shooting these trains up the peninsula, I think, was a bad thing, was a bad implementation. But what we have now with the blended solution, with the 4 tracks, is certainly, or with the 2 tracks, is certainly better than what we would have gotten with the 4 tracks. But I still think that we have to continue to fight to make sure that the impact of high-speed rail on our community is as limited as possible. And like I said, again, takes in this specific situation of the peninsula and the fact that these train tracks split communities.
I'll go. Ready? Okay. Yeah, I served on the kind of rail kind of commissions in various ways for many, many years. Took on high-speed rail pretty much with the other cities in the Pacific. We created the Peninsula Cities Consortium, which is basically a group of 5 or 6 peninsula cities that work together to bring up the issues about high-speed rail to a very high level and powerful group that had already received a mandate from the state for $9 to $10 billion to build something. But they needed to match it with private funds. They didn't have private funds. There was a lot of problems with that. And the biggest problem was that they had plans to come through our community with 4 tracks, either raised, which was going to be 40 feet high and as wide as Dumbarton, or on the ground. And that was weekly work. That was meetings constantly, riding up to Sacramento for hearings, lobbying local folks to wake up. And it became in the beginning very difficult because the pressure was such that one party was behind it, the Democratic Party was behind it for job creation and transit and all the good things, and one party was against it for a lot of reasons in finance and fiscal and the issues there. And it became very polarizing at the top, so you couldn't get anybody to listen. And so we were left to our own devices for a long time, and we spent a lot of time fighting that. The outcome we have is good, but you still have to keep watching because high-speed rail hasn't gone away yet. It's still there and it's hovering. So I think we've done a good job as a team and as a community to have something that I think works with 2 tracks and electrification.
Thank you. Kirsten?
Thank you. I concur with a lot of what's been said and have worked on this issue as a council member now for the last 4 years. And in 2012, when I was mayor, that's when the resolution was passed on the blended system, and I'm very pleased that we passed that as well as a council. The blended system, actually they announced it right here at our train station. It was Rich Gordon, Eshu, and Smidian that came here to announce it, and it was a huge win for all of us here in Menlo Park to talk about a blended system and get rid of the 4 tracks. I think going forward, you've heard a little bit about electrification. Electrification will be crucial to Caltrain now. We need to have that because all the cities are building higher density along their train stations. That's what's happening, and you can see it up and down the peninsula. And the idea is with electrification that we'll be able to get more trains going through communities more quickly and to have people use the train more often and more quickly. The thing that we'll need to continue watching are the trees, the issue about the trees. If you go to the Chamber of Commerce meetings sometimes on transportation, we had some people come and talk about the trees, and that's something that's going to be very important. One thing we asked is, well, how about if you tag the trees that you're talking about doing something to so that people in the community can see that? We need a visual so that we can rally around it to protect them and preserve as many as we possibly can. Also, the Dumbarton rail line is another useful rail line, and unfortunately 900 million, I'm sorry, 90 million went to BART, and it's going to be hard to utilize that, but we can continue using buses.
Thank you.